There are moments in aviation when all your years of training, all your experience, and all your technical knowledge boil down to a single decision that can save or doom dozens of lives. This is the story of one of those nights that forever changed my perspective on what it means to be a pilot. My name is Rick Anderson, I'm 42 years old, and I've been flying commercially for almost 2 decades. I've logged over 15,000 flight hours, been through tough situations, severe turbulence, equipment failures, and even a crosswind landing that nearly cost me my career. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for what happened that October morning, flying over the heart of the Amazon with 180 souls, trusting my competence to get them safely to their destination. It was a routine night flight for Azul Airlines, Flight 4731, departing Guarulhos at 11:45 p.m., bound for Manaus. An Airbus A320, an aircraft I knew like the back of my hand. My co-pilot was Jake, an experienced guy, 38 years old, father of 2 kids with whom I'd flown dozens of times before. We had good chemistry in the cockpit, understood each other with just a glance, and that made all the difference during long flights. The takeoff from Guarulhos was smooth. Clear skies, calm winds, excellent visibility. We climbed to our flight level FL 350, that is 35,000 feet altitude, and followed our programmed route heading north. The passengers settled in quickly, the cabin lights were dimmed, and everything indicated it would be just another routine night in Brazilian skies. During the first 2 hours of flight, everything went perfectly. We talked with air traffic control in Brasilia, received some minor route changes to optimize fuel consumption, and even had time for a relaxed conversation about Jake's plans for the weekend with his family. Every 30 minutes, I did my visual inspection of the instruments, checked the aircraft systems, and everything was within normal parameters. It was when we were flying over the Porto Velho region, already entering the heart of the Amazon, that things started going south. It was approximately 2:30 in the morning, and the darkness down there was almost absolute. Only the occasional reflection of a river cutting through the dense forest or a small clearing from some settlement lost in the green immensity broke the monotony of the deep black of the jungle. The first sign of trouble was subtle. The primary GPS navigation system began showing small oscillations in position readings. Initially, I thought it was just momentary interference, something relatively common on flights over the Amazon due to ionospheric density in the equatorial region. I switched to the secondary GPS and continued flying normally. "Rick, you seeing this?" Jake pointed to the instrument panel, his voice carrying a concern I didn't fully share yet. "Yeah, interference on the primary GPS. We're already on secondary, no problem," I replied, with the confidence of someone who had faced similar situations dozens of times before. But within minutes, the secondary GPS also began showing failures. The readings became erratic, jumping from one position to another within a radius of several kilometers. It was as if the aircraft was teleporting through the sky, which was obviously impossible. I tried recalibrating the system, checked all connections, but the problem persisted. Manaus Area Control. This is Azul 4731. We're experiencing difficulties with our GPS navigation systems. Request radar vectors to our current position, I transmitted over the radio, keeping my voice calm and professional. Azul 4731, Manaus Control. Negative radar contact at your current position. Confirm your altitude and last known position. That response sent a chill down my spine. Being outside radar coverage over the Amazon wasn't uncommon, but combined with GPS system failure, it meant we were essentially flying blind over one of the most inhospitable regions on the planet. Manaus Control, Azul 4731. Altitude, flight level 350, last known position, approximately 150 nautical miles south of Porto Velho, estimating Manaus in 1 hour 15 minutes. Azul 4731, copy. Maintain altitude and frequency. Report when you re-establish contact with our systems. I turned off the microphone and looked at Jake. He was checking the inertial navigation instruments, which fortunately still worked, though they were less accurate than modern GPS. The inertial system gave us an approximate position based on speed and direction calculations from the last known point, but the margin of error increased with time. Jake, what's our position by inertial? Approximately 200 kilometers southwest of Porto Velho, flying heading 020 degrees. But Rick, there's something weird going on here. He was right. It wasn't just a GPS failure. The satellite communication system was also showing intermittent problems, and some of the secondary electronic instruments displayed inconsistent readings. It was like we were passing through some kind of intense electromagnetic interference. At that moment, a hypothesis began forming in my mind. A few weeks earlier, I had read a report about interference caused by intense solar activity in the equatorial region. Solar storms could affect aircraft electronic systems, especially in the region near the magnetic equator, where Earth's magnetic field is weaker. Jake, do you remember the weather briefing? Was there any mention of solar activity? He pulled out the tablet with flight information and started searching. Here it is. Moderate geomagnetic activity alert for northern Brazil. Possible interference in communication and navigation systems. That explained a lot, but didn't solve our immediate problem. We were flying over the Amazon without GPS, with unstable satellite communication, outside radar coverage, with 180 passengers sleeping peacefully in their seats, trusting that everything was under control. I checked the fuel. We had approximately 2.5 hours of remaining range, considering our current consumption. If our position estimate was correct, we should reach Manaus with sufficient fuel. But if we were lost, if our calculated position was wrong... Rick, I need to show you something. Jake had a worried expression, pointing to the weather radar. There's a large storm cell forming toward Manaus. Looks like we're going to have to deviate. I looked at the weather radar screen, one of the few systems still working perfectly. A mass of loaded clouds stretched for hundreds of kilometers ahead, exactly in the direction of our destination. Red and yellow colors on the display indicated heavy rain and severe turbulence. There was no way to get through that safely. How much deviation would we have to make? Jake did some quick calculations. At least 100 nautical miles west, then a big arc north. That's going to add at least 30 minutes to our flight time. 30 minutes, we didn't have spare fuel to waste. My mind began working quickly, evaluating available options. We could try to deviate from the storm and pray our fuel estimate was correct. We could try to find an alternate airport, but most runways in the Amazon region were too small for an A320. Or, Jake, get me the aeronautical charts for the region. Let's see what options we have. While he searched for the charts, I tried once more to establish communication with air traffic control. Manaus Control, Azul 4731. Request information on alternate airports in the region due to storm formation on our route. Silence on the radio. I tried again on different frequencies, but the interference was also affecting our voice communications. We were truly alone in that dark immensity. Jake spread the navigation charts on his auxiliary table, and we began studying the options. There were some smaller landing fields in the region, but most had dirt runways or were too short for our aircraft. Then, my eyes fixed on something that caught my attention. Jake, what's this here? I pointed to a symbol on the map, approximately 80 nautical miles southwest of our estimated position. He took a magnifying glass and examined the symbol more closely. Looks like an unofficial runway, probably civil construction or military. By the symbols, it's approximately 200 meters long. 200 meters. For a loaded A320, it was the absolute minimum needed for a safe landing, and that under ideal conditions. but considering our circumstances, it could be our only real option. Got any information on that runway? Surface type, operating conditions. No details on the charts, but by the location, it must be related to some infrastructure project or temporary military base. At that moment, I felt the weight of responsibility fall on my shoulders like a ton of lead. 180 people slept peacefully just a few meters away, trusting that I would get them safely home. Their families were waiting for them. Small children would hug their parents at Manaus airport. Couples would reunite after business trips. And here I was, lost over the Amazon, having to decide between risking everything trying to reach the original destination or attempting an emergency landing on an unknown runway in the middle of the jungle. Jake, I need your honest opinion. Based on the fuel we have, the storm ahead, and the uncertainty about our exact position, what do you think is our best option? He was silent for a few seconds, studying the instruments and charts. Jake was an experienced pilot, a family man, someone who perfectly understood the weight of decisions like this. Rick, if our position is correct, we can try deviating from the storm and reach Manaus with minimum fuel. But if we're farther than we calculated, or if we encounter unforeseen headwinds... He didn't need to complete the sentence. If we ran out of fuel over the Amazon rainforest, the survival chances for 180 people would be practically zero. What about the unknown runway? It's a big unknown. We don't know surface conditions, if it's operational, if it has lighting, but at least it's a landing option on solid ground. I looked again at the weather radar. The storm seemed to be growing, expanding more west than initially predicted. The necessary deviation would now be even greater. It was at that moment that I made one of the most difficult decisions of my career. Jake, we're going to investigate that unknown runway. Fly heading 240 degrees, descend to flight level 250. Heading 240 degrees, descending to flight level 250, he confirmed, adjusting the flight controls. As we initiated the course change, I walked to the passenger cabin to check the situation. The head flight attendant, Sarah, an experienced professional with over 15 years of flying, was organizing some materials in the forward galley. Sarah, I need to talk to you privately. She immediately picked up on the serious tone of my voice and followed me to the small space between the cockpit and passenger cabin. We have a technical situation, I explained quietly. GPS navigation system failures. We're flying on basic instruments, and there's a storm blocking our route to Manaus. We're going to investigate an alternate runway for a precautionary landing. Sarah was too professional to show any sign of panic, but I saw in her eyes that she understood the gravity of the situation. All passengers are sleeping. What do you need me to do? For now, keep everything normal. If I decide on the alternate landing, I'm going to need you and your team to prepare the cabin discreetly. We don't want to alarm passengers unnecessarily, but we need to be ready. Understood, Captain. I returned to the cockpit with a heavy heart. Jake had established the new course, and we were gradually descending toward the estimated position of the unknown runway. Every minute that passed, we burned precious fuel we might need to reach Manaus if the alternate runway wasn't viable. Jake, try to establish communication on emergency frequency. Maybe we can get contact with some station in the region. He adjusted the radio to 121.5 MHz, the international emergency frequency, and began transmitting. Any station. This is Azul 4731, civilian aircraft in navigation emergency, requesting assistance. Silence. Only the static noise typical of long-distance communications. He tried again. Any military or civilian station in the Amazon region. This is Azul 4731, Airbus A320, with 186 people on board, requesting information on landing runway at approximate position latitude 08 degrees south, longitude 65 degrees west. This time, after a few seconds of silence, we heard a weak voice broken by static. Azul 4731. This is Forward Base Eagle, reading you very weak. Confirm your situation and intentions. My heart jumped. Finally, human contact in that lonely immensity. Base Eagle, Azul 4731. We have GPS navigation system failures, outside radar coverage, investigating alternate landing options due to storm en route to Manaus. Request information on landing runway in your area. Azul 4731, Base Eagle. Confirm operational runway with 1 to 400 meters length, concrete surface, no night lighting, but we can improvise emergency lighting with vehicles. Local weather conditions, calm winds, good visibility, no precipitation. Down 400 meters of concrete. It was more than the charts showed, and concrete surface was excellent news. No lighting was a problem, but if they could improvise with vehicle headlights. Base Eagle, Azul 4731. What's the nature of your installation and how many personnel do you have available for emergency assistance? Azul 4731. We're a forward military engineering base, approximately 50 men with heavy equipment and support vehicles. We have medics, but no doctors. Confirm if you intend emergency landing. I looked at Jake. He was following the entire conversation and gave a positive nod. A military base with 50 men and heavy equipment was much more than we could hope to find in the middle of the Amazon. Base Eagle, Azul 4731, request you prepare improvised runway lighting. We estimate arrival in approximately 25 minutes. We have 180 passengers and 6 crew members aboard, limited fuel, need subsequent refueling to continue journey. Azul 4731, Base Eagle, copy. Initiating emergency reception preparations. We don't have aviation fuel available, but can provide temporary accommodation if necessary. Confirm if this is a declared emergency. It was the moment of truth. Declaring emergency meant officially assuming we had a critical situation, which would trigger search and rescue protocols throughout the region. But it would also give us absolute priority and mobilize all available resources to help us. Base Eagle, Azul 4731. Confirmed declared emergency due to navigation system failure and limited fuel. Request you coordinate with aeronautical authorities to report our situation. Azul 4731, Base Eagle. Emergency confirmed and logged. We're contacting Manaus Area Control via ground communication. Good luck, Captain. Now there was no turning back. It was official. We were in emergency, attempting a landing at an improvised military runway in the middle of the Amazon rainforest. I took a deep breath and focused on what needed to be done. Jake, initiate approach procedures. Descend to 3,000 feet. Configure for landing. Descending to 3,000 feet, configuring for landing, he confirmed, beginning to adjust the aircraft systems. It was time to inform the passengers. I picked up the cabin microphone and with the calmest and most confident voice I could muster, made the announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Anderson. Due to technical difficulties with our navigation systems and adverse weather conditions on our route, we've decided to make a precautionary landing at an alternate airport. Please remain in your seats with seatbelts fastened. Our cabin crew will guide you through safety procedures. We'll reach our final destination after resolving the technical situation. Thank you. I saw through the small cabin door window passengers beginning to wake up. Some quiet conversations started, but Sarah's discipline and her team kept everything under control. They discreetly began preparing the cabin for an emergency landing, checking that all objects were stored and passengers had their seatbelts fastened. Jake, what's our current altitude? 4,500 feet and descending, speed 250 knots. Base Eagle, Azul 4731. We're descending through 4,500 feet. Estimate the runway in 15 minutes. Confirm status of emergency lighting. Azul 4731, Base Eagle. We have 12 vehicles positioned along the runway, headlights pointing up, forming a light corridor. Local wind calm, visibility 10 kilometers, temperature 82 degrees Fahrenheit. It was better than I expected. 12 vehicles would create adequate visual reference for the approach, even without official runway lighting. As we descended, I began spotting some light scattered in the jungle darkness. Small points of light indicating clearings, camps, or isolated installations. It was comforting to know we weren't completely lost in the middle of nowhere. Jake, runway in sight. There ahead, like a straight line of light cutting through the darkness, was our salvation. The military vehicle headlights created an illuminated corridor of approximately 400 meters, exactly as promised. It was a beautiful and terrifying sight at the same time. Base Eagle, Azul 4731, runway in sight, initiating final approach. Azul 4731, Base Eagle, runway clear, wind calm, cleared for approach and landing. I configured the aircraft landing systems. Flaps extended, landing gear down, speed reduced to 140 knots. The A320 was heavy, with remaining fuel and 180 passengers, which meant we'd need to use the entire runway length to stop safely. Jake, arm the speed brakes and prepare for maximum reverse on touchdown. Speed brakes armed, reverse ready. The final approach was one of the most tense of my career. Flying in the improvised light corridor from military vehicles, with the Amazon rainforest completely dark on both sides, having only the aircraft's basic instruments and my experience to guide 186 lives safely to the ground. 1,000 feet altitude, 800, 500, 200. Runway in sight continuing, I announced, more to myself than to Jake. 50 feet, 40, 30, 20. The touchdown was smooth, almost perfect. The main tires made contact with the military runway concrete, and I immediately engaged all available braking systems. Maximum engine reverse, speed brakes extended, aerodynamic brakes at full power. The aircraft gradually decelerated along the runway. 100 knots, 80, 60, 40, 20. We finally stopped approximately 100 meters from the end of the runway. We were safe on the ground, in the middle of the Amazon rainforest. But we were alive. Base Eagle, Azul 4731. Landing completed successfully. Aircraft and occupants safe. Thanks for the assistance. Azul 4731, Base Eagle. Welcome to the Amazon, Captain. Our vehicles are approaching for assistance. I shut down the engines and leaned back in my seat, feeling relief take over my body. Jake gave me a silent handshake. Sarah appeared at the cockpit door with a discreet but proud smile. Captain, passengers are calm. Some applauded the landing. How do we proceed now? Let's wait for guidance from base personnel. We'll probably have to spend the night here and get fuel in the morning. I opened the aircraft door and went down the stairs. The hot, humid Amazon air enveloped me like a hug. The smell of the jungle, mixed with the aroma of still warm engines, created a unique contrast. Around the aircraft, soldiers and military technicians approached, all curious to see the commercial airplane that had landed at their secret base in the middle of the jungle. The base commander, a middle-aged colonel with Mitchell embroidered on his uniform, approached with a broad smile. Captain Anderson, I presume. Welcome to Base Eagle. We rarely receive such unexpected visits. Colonel Mitchell, thank you so much for all the assistance. Without you guys, this story could have had a very different ending. It was our pleasure to help. We've already contacted Manaus. They're providing fuel and parts to check your navigation systems. They'll arrive here in the morning. Our men will help accommodate the passengers in our rest area. In the following hours, I witnessed an impressive operation of hospitality and military efficiency. The base soldiers improvised accommodations for 180 civilian passengers, served hot coffee, organized communication so people could notify their families, and even prepared an Amazon barbecue for breakfast. The passengers, initially apprehensive, soon became fascinated by the unique experience of spending a night at a military base in the heart of the jungle. Children played with soldiers, adults listened to stories about life in the jungle, and many took photos that would certainly become the most unusual of their lives. During the early morning hours, while most people rested, Jake and I checked all aircraft systems with help from base technicians. We discovered the solar storm had been really intense, affecting electronic systems over an area of hundreds of kilometers. Other aircraft in the region had also reported similar problems. At dawn, a technical team from the airline arrived by helicopter, bringing fuel and equipment to test our navigation systems. After a few hours of work, they confirmed all systems were functioning normally. The solar interference had ceased during the night. Before departing, I made sure to gather all passengers for a complete explanation of what had happened. I told them about the navigation system failure caused by the solar storm, about the decision to divert to the military base, and about how Colonel Mitchell and his men's competence and hospitality had turned a potentially dangerous situation into a positive experience. You folks had the unique opportunity to meet anonymous heroes who work silently to protect our Amazon, I told the passengers gathered in front of the aircraft. And I learned that sometimes the best decisions are those we make when we trust not only our instruments, but also our experience and the support of extraordinary people. The return flight to Manaus was smooth, with all systems working perfectly. Passengers arrived at their destination a few hours late, but with a unique story to tell for the rest of their lives. Later, I learned our situation had been monitored by Brazilian air traffic control, which had lost our radar contact exactly when we reported. Search and rescue teams were being organized when they received information that we had landed safely at Base Eagle. The official flight report classified the event as a technical emergency successfully resolved through adequate flight safety procedures. But for me, it was much more than that. It was a lesson about leadership, about making difficult decisions under pressure, and about how technical preparation and human experience combine in critical moments. 6 months later, I received a letter from Colonel Mitchell informing that Base Eagle had been officially registered as an alternate airport for emergencies, with permanent lighting installed and aviation fuel stock. Our experience had contributed to improving safety for future flights over the Amazon region. Jake continued flying with me for 2 more years before accepting a promotion to captain. Sarah and her team received an honorable mention from the airline for professionalism demonstrated during the emergency. And me, well, I continued flying, but with a completely new perspective on what it means to have the responsibility of human lives in your hands. Today, whenever I fly over the Amazon at night, I look down trying to identify the lights of Base Eagle. Sometimes I manage to spot the point of light lost in the dark immensity, and it reminds me that no matter how advanced our technology is, no matter how many backup systems we have, there will always be moments when we need to trust human competence, accumulated experience, and solidarity among people who chose to dedicate their lives to serving others. Aviation is a profession that doesn't forgive mistakes, but rewards those who prepare adequately to face the unexpected. That night, over the Amazon, I learned that being a pilot isn't just about knowing procedures and operating equipment. It's about making decisions that can save lives, about staying calm when everything seems to be going wrong, and about trusting that your preparation and experience are enough to overcome any challenge the skies might present. But perhaps the most important lesson was discovering that even in the loneliest moments, when you're flying through darkness with the responsibility of hundreds of lives, you're never really alone. There's always someone willing to help, a friendly voice on the radio, a light in the darkness signaling a safe harbor. And that's why I continue flying, because I know each flight is an opportunity to get people safely home, to connect families, to make the world a little smaller and more accessible. But mainly because I know that when things get tough, when instruments fail and storms block the way, there will always be a base eagle somewhere, with brave people willing to light beacons in the darkness to guide lost aviators back home. That's the magic of aviation. It teaches us that no matter how high we fly, we always depend on each other to arrive safely at our destination. And sometimes the angels that protect us wear military uniforms and operate heavy equipment in the middle of the Amazon rainforest, ready to transform a dirt runway into an international airport when human lives are at stake. If you're afraid of flying, remember this story. Remember that behind every flight there are dedicated professionals, redundant safety systems, and a support network that works 24 hours a day to ensure you reach your destination safely. And if someday you find yourself in an unexpected situation during a flight, trust the crew's competence and know they'll do everything within their power to protect you. Because that's what we do. That's what we train for. That's why we chose this extraordinary profession that allows us to transform the impossible into routine, and routine into something extraordinary when circumstances demand it. The next time you look out an airplane window and see only darkness down there, remember that somewhere in that darkness there are people like Colonel Mitchell and his men, ready to light beacons and open their gates to receive lost travelers. And that in the cockpit there are professionals like Jake and me, prepared to make the tough decisions and use all our experience to ensure everyone gets home safely. Because in the end, every flight is a shared journey, a demonstration of trust between strangers, and proof that when we work together, we can overcome any challenge the sky might present us. That was my longest night as a pilot, but also the one that taught me the most about the true meaning of flying. It's not just about taking off from one place and landing in another. It's about getting people safely through the impossible, about transforming problems into solutions, and about discovering that the greatest technology of all remains the human capacity to help each other in the most difficult moments. And when someone asks why I chose to be a pilot, it's exactly this story I tell. Because it sums up everything I love about this profession: the responsibility, the challenge, the technology, but mainly the opportunity to be part of something bigger than ourselves, something that connects people and places, that transforms distances into proximity, and that reminds us, with every flight, how much we're capable of when we trust each other. If you enjoyed this story from the Amazon skies, if it made you think about courage, responsibility, or the importance of working together in difficult moments, subscribe to the Black Box channel. Here you'll find more real accounts from pilots who faced extraordinary situations, stories that show the best of aviation and humanity. Leave in the comments what flight situation you'd like to hear in the next episode, and share this video with anyone you think would be interested in these stories from the skies. After all, every story shared is a lesson learned, and every lesson learned makes the skies a little safer for all of us.